Hi, my name is Angie Powers, and I'm your Olathe NEA president. In this last week of the 2025-2026 school year, we're asking you to take a few moments to make sure you understand what is in the potential MOU or Memorandum of Understanding, and we're asking you to cast your vote. As many of you are aware, we are going to continue the negotiations for the 2026-2027 school year when school resumes in the fall. Our goal is to get the best financial package possible in a very difficult financial climate that we are in. What we would like for you all to consider with the MOU is some of the items that we believe would be more difficult to implement, in the middle or at least past the beginning part of the year. So we're asking you to vote on the MOU. And if that MOU does pass, which means that more 50% plus one of you need to vote. Okay, we need to make sure that we have enough people who vote. How you vote, of course, is up to you. In order for that MOU to take effect at the beginning of the year, we need you all to vote. And of course, the majority of those who vote would need to vote, of course, in the affirmative. So the MOU would take place in August of 2026, and it includes all of these areas. And I will go through those areas and just highlight some of the details. But of course, you have access, full access to all of these details so you can take a look at them. The first one is elementary plan time. The elementary plan time language is very simple. We had some different buildings that were interpreting the original language to mean that the elementary plan time amount in a 4-day week, 4-day student contact week, was a little more flexible than what we would want. We believe our elementary educators need every minute of plan time that we can get them. So you'll notice the language right here is what we would like you to vote on for the MOU. And it says that elementary educators will receive a minimum of 300 minutes in a 5-day week or 240 minutes of individual plan time in a 4-day week. It's very simple. What we really did, if you go back and look, is we struck words like normally and typically, and we just made it that this is the minimum, and these are the exact numbers. We had a reference to A through D rotation that caused a little bit of confusion. So we hope that this provides that clarification that it's not normally, it's not minimal, it's not typically, it is all of our educators should receive that amount of time on the 4-day versus 3-day weeks. Next up on the MOU, of course, is SPED paperwork days. We know that our special educators are overextended, and our hope is the SPED paperwork days is at least a start in helping them balance their workload. You'll notice here it defines special education staff. They are involved in writing and implementing evaluations and IEP programs in compliance with IDEA, excuse me, and each one of those will be granted up to 4 days, and that is, of course, for a full-time equivalent employee. These days can't be carried over. You don't have to take them. If using the paperwork days causes an educator more stress or you don't need them, you don't have to take them. But they also will not roll over. If an educator routinely gets a sub when absent, then they should get a sub. And we did get some language that says, unless no other alternative exists, cancellations due to substitute availability will be avoided. We tried to get as sure language as we could because we know preparing for a sub is a bear. Goes through each one of these items right here. One thing that I do want to highlight is right here. The date of each paperwork day will be determined by a mutual agreement between the building principal or whoever your building supervisor is and that staff member. Okay, that means that staff member might not get the number one choice, but it's also not going to be, well, your principal just tells you what the date is. Mondays and Fridays are going to be more difficult. Okay, so working ahead of time to get those scheduled will make it more likely that the substitutes will be available, of course. It outlines various things that paperwork day can be used for. It does indicate that the professional paperwork day should be done at a district building. I know for some of our employees, being in your home building is going to be much more comfortable. And in other of our buildings, if you're in your home building, you will not be able to get any work done. So we do have a variety of places where special educators might be able to work. I'll tell you, I have an office in the IRC, so don't ever hesitate to reach out and say, "Hey, Angie, can I use your office?" I'll even clean off a piece of my desk for you. But we really want to make sure that our sped educators have these available to them as a way to help them balance their workload. Blackout days, probably one of the biggest things that we hear about. You'll notice here a lot of our leaves language is indicated, and then right here is the language for the blackout days. I'm going to go ahead, and this is the final language. I'm going to go ahead and take this down a little bit and show you some of the differences between the previous language. Okay, so the first 3 days for new to district educators, instead of the first 10 days, it's the first 2 of the school year. Instead of the last 15, it's the last 7. Okay, 1 day prior to and after a holiday, and we went ahead and cut it down from 2 days before and after breaks to 1 day before and after break. Monday through Thursday of conferences, we went ahead and struck out professional learning days, and then the last 187-day educator contract day. We call that our checkout day. Okay, so we wanted to make sure that people understood that we were able to get this down to about 50%. Our original proposal was, of course, eliminating blackout days all the way, but we wanted to at least be able to see that reduction, offer you all an opportunity to vote on an MOU that would allow this to take place in August. I am going to kind of jump down right here. You'll notice under Appendix B, the 26-27 employment calendar. Some people call this the blackout day calendar. I am currently working with employee services to get the screenshot corrected and then get a full PDF uploaded and attached to this document. But I did want to point out that we had 2 errors here. Originally, when I got this calendar from Employee Services, they had the first student contact day after winter break and, excuse me, the first student contact day after spring break. But if you look at the language, it does in fact say the first day. So the one change that you all will notice when I send this out is the blackout day is actually going to be January 4th because that is the first day after, not the first student contact day. And the same with March, it's going to go ahead and move back to the 22nd. So I wanted to let you know that that is a detail that we're getting corrected so that you all will have the corrected information when you are voting, of course. Appraisal, many of you are aware that this year we had 2 different appraisal systems going. One was a pilot system, and then we had the traditional Olathe system. So the appraisal language in the negotiated agreement had some changes. We kind of skinnied down some of the language, got rid of some of the extraneous information. You'll notice here we did go ahead and add just kind of future facing some language about artificial intelligence. I want to be clear, the district has not said, hey, we want AI to do all of the appraisal, but we just know, looking in the world that we're in, that this language clarifies that AI should not be the sole basis of any appraisal outcome. We understand that some of our educators use AI to help them analyze data, of course, taking out that personally identifiable information from students. So this is not a ban on AI in appraisal. It's simply saying that we should have humans doing the work of appraisal, particularly when it comes to that evaluator. The other item with appraisal is going to be in Appendix 6, excuse me, Appendix C rather. Currently, Appendix C has 2 different appraisal handbooks. So this is going to modify the OKEEP, which is the new appraisal system, depending on how you all vote on the MOU. The OKEEP system, KEEP is the Kansas Education Evaluation Protocol. It is something that many of our neighboring school districts have, and the entire handbook minus the rubric, it would be included inside of the negotiated agreement. So slight difference here. Instead of accomplished, we have highly effective in terms of ratings. This goes through all of how things will be scored. It has how, if you have four highly effectives and three effectives, then that means the appraiser will determine either highly effective or effective. If the educator has four highly effectives overall, then that would be an overall rating of, or more than four highly effectives, that would be a rating of highly effective. It goes through to make sure that people are getting their final ratings really consistent across the district. Out of cycle evaluation is kind of a new term that we have. And out of cycle evaluation is everything from somebody's having a transition year. So maybe you taught high school math and then you are going to teach middle school, I don't know, special education. Okay. Then you might be put on an out of cycle evaluation, which just is a little bit more support. Or maybe you are not successful in one area of the rubric. You would go on an out of cycle evaluation. It's just built to provide people more support. So you'll notice the educator support plans. We've got building plans. We have district plan. All of this goes through the requirements. All of the due dates are right here, as you can see. Student performance data. I know a lot of people said, please, can we get rid of student performance data in evaluation? We use it so much. In PLCs, we talk about data. Why is it in appraisal? And again, that's because it is a state requirement. We can't get rid of that because we'd be violating a state statute. And this is kind of the overview of the appraisal process. And everything after here would be glossary and, of course, bibliography. So that's definitely the meatiest part. Of the MOU. And then in Appendix B, there's a lot of calendars and whatnot. Our Mill Creek and OATC friends or two-year academies, they piloted something a little different with conferences this year, and it went well. So we are now wanting to add that to the agreement via this MOU. Please know that the number of hours, those are our Mill Creek and our OATC or two-year academy folks work. Conference week is the same number of hours as our other educators. It's just split up a little bit different because of some of the unique features of those programs. We've already looked at the employment calendar. Let's look at the professional learning calendar. One thing that we did in the in the calendar committees, we talked about how this year, you might remember we had a full flex day plus a full day work day. And that was because this year there was an error, quite frankly, in the district calculating the number of contract days, and there weren't enough contract days. So because we were having to add an additional day after the calendar was already published this year, we were able to come to a consensus between the district and the union that additional day would be a work day. In calendar committee, we definitely had educator voice talking about how helpful that additional workday was. So what we were able to do to come to a consensus is originally this calendar had the flex day, 4 half days here, 2 half days here, and 1 half day here. And the principals in calendar committee offered to switch out one of the principal directed activities so that we would have an additional half day educator prep. So I wanted you to know that we weren't quite where we were this year. But again, the way that we had the calendar this year was unique, but we did make progress from years past where we have an additional half day of educator prep. Remember, anything to the right of this line counts as 0 student contact minutes. Anything to the left of that line will count as half student contact minutes. So I wanted to take a moment to look at that. The grade and reporting calendar, pretty much similar to what we've done in the past. I will tell you that we talked a little bit about Q1. You'll notice that the date for mid-quarter progress reports actually was pushed back a little bit. It originally fell right after Labor Day, which we felt was a little tricky. And quite frankly, we know that the first few days of school, there's a lot of getting to know you, a lot of setting rules and procedures. So we will definitely be interested in your feedback on this mid-quarter for first quarter happening a little bit over halfway through the quarter, which in years past, it's been kind of flipped. It was a little less than halfway through the quarter. So we got some feedback that it felt like those mid-quarter progress reports were just like, hey, I just barely know my students and now I have to do these grades. So we were hoping that get some positive reviews. But of course, if educators tell us they want something different, we'll do something different. And then finally, 27-28 district calendar. This is very similar to calendars in years past. You'll remember that this year's calendar was a bear because of Memorial Day. Memorial Day is now, excuse me, in 27-28 will be the 29th. So we're ending May 24th. That's very similar to what we've done in the past. The spring break falls kind of similar to what we've had. January, we're coming back not like the second or first, excuse me, the second rather, like we did this year. That we have the full 2 weeks for December. And of course, we have in August here, we have starting the second week of August. I will tell you that I've gotten quite a few questions about like why don't we have a system like Shawnee Mission where if we don't use our snow days that we get out earlier. And I want to tell you that we don't have that system. We've never had that system, but we will, of course, be taking feedback from you all. But I will tell you one critical difference is when you look at Shawnee Mission's calendar, like this calendar, and you're looking at contract days, they have 191 days on the calendar, and they, like us, have 187 contract days. So they actually build in extra days to the calendar. And on the calendar, it says, for example, let's say it's May 24th, it says May 24th is the latest that they're going to get out. Okay, and then if they don't use their snow days, then they push that back. What that means in Shawnee Mission is that snow days are not contract days. Olathe, what we've always done is when we're building this calendar, we're building 187 days, which is what most of us, I know not all of us are on that contract, but most of our teachers and our educators are on 187 day contract. That means in Olathe, when we have a snow day, it is a contract day. So we will continue to get feedback from you all about how we do our snow days and our dismissal and all of that. But I did want to pull to bring that up because that has been something that's been popping quite a bit. Lastly, I want to tell you that we mostly stayed away from compensation in this MOU for, well, for obvious reasons, because we're really waiting for the district for all the count days. There's a sped count day in June, and then there's another count day, of course, September 20th. The district wants to get all that information, but we did go ahead and put in one compensation item. Please do not take this to mean that the rest of our extracurricular academic support stipends are not going to be considered. But what we got from that committee is that because of the changes in middle school electives, middle school cheer and dance, their courses changed dramatically in a way that directly impacted the amount of work or number of hours, I should say, of practices outside of the contract day. So we went ahead and we put in the MOU the implementation of the committee, a recommendation of moving the head from group 7 to 4 and the assistants from group 17 to 15. We went ahead and included that into the MOU. That doesn't mean that the middle school cheer and dance is like more important than anything else. We know that all of our jobs are constantly changing. However, we wanted to acknowledge that these jobs change dramatically based on board action, and we wanted to make sure to kind of help sustain the leaders that we have in those programs so that people would honestly know what they're going to make. Again, you have until noon on Friday to cast your vote. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and have a great summer.